Good afternoon, Jim.
Hello. Thanks for having
Uh,
us along, Paul.
No, you're welcome. So, for anyone who's watching, this is Jim Fry. He's a photographer. He was a member of World of Twist, and he's
Very
come,
early member. Yeah.
yeah, and he's come very highly recommended by Julia Sepper. Give her a shout.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah.
MC Shells.
MC Shells, I love that name.
Well, she was in World of Twist when they were good.
Yeah,
Um, but I grew up in Stockport, Cheadle, Bramall, around there in deepest Cheshire. Um, and my closest friends was Gordon King, who was at the school with me. And at the other school, we knew Tony Ogden. Um, and then we slowly but surely became friends, really good friends. So inevitably, I guess, I met Tony, he was playing drums. Whenever anyone needed a drummer in Cheadle or Bramall, Tony Ogden was your man. He could play the drums quite well. And I helped him load his drums into his little car one day, and we got chatting, and then we went for a pint, and we became really good friends. I think it was like the summer we were leaving school, really. Um, it was inevitable that me, Tony, and Gordon would form a band one day,
yeah,
but that would be later in the 80s in Sheffield, about 83, 84. We got a band together, and I was a singer, Tony was on drums, and Gordon on guitar, and we got in Andy Hobson on bass, who's another Cheshire kid. Um, and then Adge, who I'd met at Stockport Tech doing graphic design, Alan Frost, Adge. Um, and then Julia got involved with the band as well. As they but originally I was in a sort of we were in a quite a shambolic kind of band called World of Twist. Um, we tended to take the piss really. We never really took it very seriously, which I think is kind of a good thing. And
yeah,
we were into sort of kind of junk shop glam, junk shop northern soul, I'd call it. We started to collect secondary northern soul, not so much the big hitters, the big collectors, but people like Raoul Donner, and Tommy Hunt, and the kind of we even like Wigan's Casino, Wigan's Chosen Few, and Wigan's Ovation, and we like this kind of synthy, cheap synth string sort of Northern Soul, and we attempted to make some of it. There's a quite a good song. It's actually an instrumental though; it doesn't have my voice on it. Called the Sausage, and that had a kind of that kind of funfair cheap in Northern Soul, and we enjoyed it. We got on very well then. We were all good mates. Um, we even entered a pop and rock contest in Sheffield when we were going to kind of deliberately blow it, and we went and won it, which was a bit of a shame. Um, but I guess in me personally, I was never that comfortable being the lead singer. I've never have been. Um, I've seen what lead singing does to people. I'll just leave that there,
yeah,
um, and how it alters their perspective. But my heart was always in photography, and
yeah,
that's what I'd done at Stockport Tech when I was about 78. A lot of photography. I did it at school as well before that, and I got a CSE grade one in photography. That's the only thing I had. I had a great teacher called Mrs. Havis, and we went. I went to Bramall Comprehensive, which was this sprawling, massive school. There's about 1,500 kids there, and it was just utterly pointless. I mean, I wasn't bullied, or I didn't do any bullying. I hope. Um, it was just an utterly pointless experience.
yeah,
But the one thing, yeah, I'm not a big Pink Floyd fan, but another brick in the wall. I mean, it couldn't have been more appropriate that term. But there was this photography teacher called Mrs. Havis. God bless her. She put her arm around me one day, which is probably not allowed to do to school kids now. And she said, "You could be really good at this, Jamie, if you get your shit together, if you get your act together."
yeah,
And I always took that with me. And I guess all schools are like that. If somebody gives you encouragement, um, and not perhaps just pushes you, gives you a little nudge in the right direction,
yeah,
maybe you'll get something out of it. And I'm forever grateful. So I went to Stockport Tech really to do a graphics course because it had photography in the title, and that's when I met Adge, and I met a guy called Dave Connor and Julia Adamson, who would become a member of the Fall many years later. we formed a band, and our first gig, we got Gordon involved, and Tony was on drums. And our first gig was at Hazel Grove Youth Club, and they used to have punk nights there, and really brilliant nights. And you ran the gauntlet going up to the other school, because we were from a different school. But we did a gig in there, and it was a blast. It was hilarious. The band was called Blackout, and it was. I should stress they were named after the track on Heroes by David Bowie, Blackout. We were obviously misrepresented because whenever we put a poster up for Blackout, the Rock Against Racism people would come and pull it down or put a poster over it. It wasn't our intention to offend anyone, I can assure you. But we did a couple of gigs there. And of course, when I left school in 76, and that summer I'd seen Bowie at Wembley, Thin White Duke. I went to the Lesser Free Trade Hall, the second gig at the Lesser Free Trade Hall, which was the Buzzcocks debut, when Slaughter and the Dogs were on the bill. And I saw the Pistols. Now I know that's almost like a joke in Manchester, isn't it? Like the people that claim they were there, but I was definitely there. I can swear. I swear. Me and my big brother Martin went with some friends, and that, like they say, it was revolutionary. I was listening to Queen and UFO, and I was probably being groomed to be a heavy metal fan. Really, I probably would have followed the metal route. Yeah, because I like the racket and I like the noise and I like feedback. I love the lighting and the presentation. Me and Gordon went to see Kiss when they played the Free Trade Hall in Manchester. Yeah, I went to see the Who at Bellevue with my big brother. So I was very lucky. I got to do a lot of things that 15 and 18-year-old would do. But 76, of course, you left school and then I went to Stockport Tech in 77. And it couldn't have been a better time to go to sort of art school. And like I say, the school I went to wasn't particularly rough or anything like that. It was just fucking boring. Yeah. And I guess I started learning. I was talking to my mum about this. My mum's 94. And I guess I started to use my brain a bit more when I left school. I think that was the important part. And punk rock, I know it's a cliche. I know everybody talks about it. And a lot of people talk about it that weren't around. But it was an absolute and utter revelation for me. Yeah. It was. I couldn't have been built more equipped for it. Coming out of school, no O levels, told by a recruitment guy, careers officer. You got 3 minutes with the careers officer to plan your future. It's a bit like Kes, where they just push you down a mine. He said if you get 8 O levels, you might become assistant manager at Allied Carpets. And now there's nothing wrong with working at Allied Carpets and working in retail. My kids do it, but that's not quite what I had planned in my head. You're listening to the first Clash album, the Ramones album. You'll soon get a copy of Nevermind the Bollocks, and so it definitely wasn't on my agenda. Yeah. But punk rock made sense, and I went to Stockport College and I met some great like-minded people, including Adge, Julia, a guy called Dave Connor, who's no longer with us, and we formed our band. But the great thing at college was there was screen printing, and there was this kind of, it started to make sense that you would do things like be in bands and write things. We planned our own fanzine using the printers, and this kind of intellectual kind of granada, not unlike Tony Wilson, kind of swaggering guy with a scarf that ran the art course. He then took over the fanzine and took on the whole group and said, we're all going to do this fanzine. And he wanted to call it Something Better Change after a Stranglers song. And it was just wrong. It just wasn't what we wanted. We were budding fall fans, you know what I mean? We were into the fall. And we were getting caught up in all sorts of brilliant ideas. And of course, the snobbery of all that, of the music and of the record collecting and of the bands came in. And, we were very, very kind of high-end punks as Stockport College kids. And a couple of great things happened there. One of them I've written about before is that the local Stockport Education Committee, bless them, they got us enough money together to send the whole class down to London to see a Dada and Surrealism exhibition at the Hayward Gallery. I've been to London once with my mum and dad. I went to see the Tower of London. We went to the Tower of London and saw, and did the touristy thing. But we went down, we took the train one morning from Stockport station to London, and we were just hyped up, 16, 17-year-olds. It's just brilliant. We went to see the Dada Surrealism, which was genuinely bizarre. You know,
Yeah.
fur cup and saucer, and the toilet, what's he called? I forgot his name. Marcel Duchamp. You know, the toilet was in there. I mean,
Yeah.
this was like big stuff, and it was a huge exhibition. And then we ran riot around London all afternoon in Soho and went in kind of bars and stuff. And then we raced it back, and it was a great thing for the college to do, to take us down there and do that. It was a really, really impressive experience.
Yeah.
And I remember us legging it back to Stockport, and then into Manchester, then over to Salford, and we went to see Blondie at Salford Uni. So that
Wow.
it was 78. Blondie were doing that first proper tour, I think.
Yeah.
Headline tour. So, you know, London, I mean, Manchester was just rife then. I remember standing outside the Apsley Cottage down the side of the Apollo, and we probably only afford one drink, and you're having your pint. And then the Ramones all walk. We were waiting to see the Ramones, and the Ramones walked past the brick wall. So there's this brick wall, and then you've got like the Ramones, and it was like the album cover had come to life, just down by the Apsley in Ardwick. And of course, the big one at there was the Clash when they played. Give 'Em Enough Rope, I think it was the second album tour. And this is when Suicide came over, the band Suicide from New York, who supported. And apparently they had quite an easy night in Manchester. But when I got in, I saw one number and they got booed off stage. I mean, the next night they were in Glasgow. Someone threw an axe on stage at them.
Going through an axe?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to give it the bad old days and that. But I suppose, and that was in Glasgow, but Manchester can be quite a tough place. Especially you lived in suburbia, you know, you ran the gauntlet a little bit across Piccadilly Circus. But it was good. I personally, it was always worth the risk, because we would go to the Electric Circus, which is Collier. So you go up past into Piccadilly Gardens and up, really, past Dry Bar and all the way up, and then keep going up, don't you, really? I think. And up that, like, what is now called the Northern Quarter, because it definitely wasn't called the Northern Quarter when I was there. And we'd go to the Circus, and I saw some brilliant things there. Obviously saw the two Anarchy tour gigs, because the Pistols had to play twice in Manchester because no one would have them. But the punk was well and truly settled in Manchester at that point, so they played twice on the Anarchy tour. I went to I saw Ramones supported by Talking Heads, which was just incredible.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I turned out I loved Talking Heads. And then that was a particularly good. Now, I might be mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, they went on Old Grey Whistle Test and they wore Lacoste. But I think when they played in Manchester, they all wore Fred Perry, because they knew he was a Stockport boy. They were like that kind of a band that would do a lot of research. And I think all four of them wore Fred Perry's on the stage, which would have been, if maybe I made that up, maybe I've just imagined that, but I think that's what happened. I'm saying that's what happened. And then I'd see loads of things: the Dam, the Clash up there, Subway Sex. And then we went to Rafters after that. Rafters became a sort of the place to go. The Circus closed down. I mean, it was a death trap. I mean, it was, but these are the days before health and safety. I mean, it was just totally rational, kind of by today's standards. But it was a good place. It was friendly, and once you got in, you were all right. And then you just had to make sure you didn't get the little kids in Colliers chucking stuff at you when you're legging it back into town, and then get the 192 to Stockport and then get home. But anyway, but then Rafters got really good. Rafters was brilliant. Saw quite a few things there. And then after that, I kind of moved to Sheffield. All my mates went to university, and I didn't go. I left school at 16, and as I say, I went to Stockport Tech. I got a job doing graphic design and with insurance, Sharston, and then in Cheadle. And all my mates went to uni. So me and my mate Gordon decided to move to Sheffield and probably act like students, really. And that's when we formed World of Twist, and Tony would come over. And Tony moved over eventually. So we formed the band. But I was lucky. I mean, I moved to Sheffield, and I knew it because my brother was at university there. But of course, my brother, who was in ABC, after uni, brilliantly with his mates, pulled off this massive stunt, saying, you know, we're all on the dole, let's do something. And they built strategically built ABC. They
Yeah.
thought about it, they discussed it, and they planned it. And a
Yeah.
lot of that plan went well. I'm sure a lot of it didn't go to plan. I'm not sure. It was very clandestine. I wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to know what was going on a lot of time. But it was brilliant. You know,
Yeah.
Martin just says, "I'm going to go and get a lame suit." And what do you think? And I just thought, genius. So
Yeah.
anyway, so by the time I got to Sheffield, ABC were in London all the time, really, and then they went on a world tour for 2 years. So I didn't really have a lot to do with them. But I worked with a band called Clock DVA, and Clock DVA gave me, and I worked for a photographer in Sheffield. And Clock DVA said to me, "Will you shoot a record sleeve for us?" And I was given my first ever record sleeve, and it was Addie Newton holding a trumpet. It was called Passion Still Aflame EP, and that happened. Then a guy called Nick Sanderson came and joined Clock DVA, and came and lived in our shared house. And Nick would become one of my closest friends. He DVA then wanted a lighting guy, so I was elected as lighting man, and I did a bit of work with club acts in South Yorkshire during the miners' strike, really, working
Yeah.
for turns, doing the lighting and staging, and we're doing a bit of sound, but lighting was always my thing, not so much the sound, and roadieing, really, just doing roadieing and getting paid for it. And I went away with Clock DVA. We went to New York and stayed in the Iroquois Hotel, and played at Danceteria. They played. I did the lights. I was
Yeah.
responsible for all the slideshow and all the visuals.
Yeah.
Addy curated it, but I would make it work. I would make it work. And then DVA took me to Berlin when the wall was up, and that was just bonkers. I mean, it was just surreal. When you
Yeah.
were a Bowie fan, growing up with Low and Heroes and the Berlin trilogy, as they call it, and to go to Berlin. And Nick Sanderson was always into his war history. He loved it. Nick's not around anymore, but he loved war history.
Yeah.
So he had us up at 7 in the morning, and we went to find out where Hitler's bunker was. And we went to look where the Hansa by the Wall Studios was. And all the time I'm taking photographs and doing light shows. Then we came back and we formed World of Twist, and we got World of Twist underway. And we played about 12 or 14 gigs. We were never serious, but I really wanted to.
What year did they form World of Twist? Was it like
83, 84?
83?
Yeah, yeah, but we were together for about 2 years. We were obsessed with Dexys Midnight Runners, the first album, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels. We loved Soft Cell, and again, there was that both of those bands used Northern Soul in a very different, what we'd call Northern Soul, but they use Northern Soul in a very different way.
Yeah.
Two very different bands in many ways, and we were into Northern Soul. So we had these kind of ideas of invention, and we into Bond soundtracks and John Barry, and it was a bit daft, It didn't work really. It was good. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we stayed friends. I became frustrated, I think, more than anyone, because I'm not sure I really wanted to be a singer. And that at that point in Sheffield, Sheffield could be Candy or could be quite small town in the music crowd. And I was just Martin Fry's brother, I didn't want to do that. You can't be that all your life. But so I was never really going to do the singer thing. And anyway, I decided to move to London. DVA fell apart. They split up. And then I moved to London. Nick Sanderson invited me down to London. And there I took photography really seriously.
Yeah.
Worked for a guy called Paul Ryder. Not to be confused with the guy from Happy Mondays.
Yeah.
Though we did photograph Happy Mondays. And Paul was a rock photographer in many ways, but he also did a lot of smash hits. And it was a great time because smash hits was courting what you'd call indie bands. Smash hits would have Stone Roses in them. So we would go and meet Stone Roses and do Stone Roses for smash hits. And they would have Happy Mondays in them. And we did that. And then we'd come up to Manchester and use a place called Nomad Studios, which is what used to be Shudehill. I suppose it's the Northern Quarter now. It's near the Daily Express building, the big glass building, the Deco building.
Yeah.
And we went to Nomad Studios and we spent an afternoon with the Roses there once, and it was just so good. It was just so cool. I love that band. I love that album, and they were so nice to us. And they bought us cheese butties and stuff like that. Then we did Happy Mondays the same place. But Sean Ryder had to leave early because he'd gone and left a carrier bag with about 300 tickets for GMEX at the dry bar under a seat. And it's like, right, oh my God, I've got to go. So that was cut short. I know we did New Order there as well once. And then we'd go to Manchester a lot. So I covered all that. Then, of course, I became a photographer for real. And this was what would be the second wave, I guess, because then you had Interstella, and you had World of Twist, who were both managed by Caroline and Dave Hardy. Dave Hardy is a very, very good friend of mine. Again, no longer with us. We're losing so many people. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Dave managed Twist, and Gordon and Tony always wanted me to be involved. There was never a problem with it. And it was like, I'm like, I want to do your lights. I want to do. So Adge was in, and Adge was a filmmaker by this point with Angela, Adge and Ange, and they were responsible for the video, a lot of the visuals and video. And I did the stage lighting, if you like. And we conceived all these ridiculous ideas. I think the point about World of Twist very important was that they believed, and there were a lot of bands like that at the time. They believed that you should put on a show, however big the venue is, that you should present yourself. And it's old school, it was coming from people like Dexys Midnight Runners and maybe ABC a bit. There would be an opening take before the band walked on. It was never just come in and tune up and put your head down and start tuning. It was everything had to have impact. And Tony really believed that. and so did Gordon. So I backed it completely. I was there like wingman, if you like, in the audience. And I believe that as well. So visually, they really felt very strongly. And they threw a lot of money at that kind of thing. They got a budget. They got a tour budget, and they would say, right, we're having risers. We want to be on different levels. And they famously had this wheel that said rock and roll on it.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic piece of kit. We played at King Tut's once, and we couldn't get it in the room. We had to just leave it on the floor because it couldn't get on the stage. The stage was too low. They believed in pyrotechnics, bombs going off, and dry ice, and UV. We went for a lot of UV as well, and so it was good. World of Twist for me was a real learning curve, and anything was possible, and a lot of that was down to Dave Hardy because he just said, okay, Tony would have some madcap idea, or Gordon would come, right, this is what we're going to do, and I'd egg them on and encourage them, and then you would have this. And Dave Hardy would just roll his eyes back, go on, then we'll do it. And we did. And you need to ask Julia about the famous Astoria gig. Twist got quite big, they sold out the Astoria Town and Country Club. They were on the way. They were on the way somewhere, they sold out the Ritz and like places like that.
Yeah.
But ask Julia about the volcano.
Volcano. I'll message you that.
They built. It was big enough to fit in a transit van. They built this massive volcano, and it was going to have smoke come out of it. And then they had a little volcano, which was going to have an SH-101, a Korg synth, which Julie was going to play. And I think Julie was going to wear her Racco Welsh 2,000 years BC kind of gear. This is why I used to think she was called Julia Vesuvius, because there was this volcano. Anyway, of course, you get to London, and get to the back of the Astoria in the afternoon. We're setting up, and of course the council come down and he says, "You're not putting that on stage. It's not fireproofed." So anyway, this volcano sat outside the Astoria for about a year and a half until it just disintegrated. Ian Rainford made it. It's the stuff of folklore.
Yeah.
But the Twist gig was good. But tellingly, it was the support that night were Saint Etienne, and I don't know if you know this. Yeah, and it was Sarah Cracknell's first ever gig for Saint Etienne.
Oh,
yeah, and there's a line on the first Saint Etienne album, to the sound of the World of Twist, you leant over and you gave me a kiss.
Oh,
I think
wow.
they credit it, and they loved Twist.
Yeah.
They were really taken by World of Twist. And I got a call. I'd done a lot of good work. I did a lot of work with Interstella. And Interstella, I shot album sleeves, and we did great pictures of them on cars on Southport Beach. They did this amazing gig.
Did you do that?
But there's one of them sat on the car, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Do you mean like the album cover where they're all on Brighton Beach?
It's Southport Beach. Yeah, I
Southport.
did that. Yeah, but there was also another shot that was being held back, which they could have used. I think they used it later. Of them sat on Spencer Birtwhistle's, I think it's a Volvo. Oh no, Beamer. It's a BMW,
Yeah,
and Stella sat on it with bare feet. She's got sand on her feet, and she just sat there, and the band are hanging out at the back in the background. It's like a really good sort of beach vibe kind of picture.
yeah,
That's a great shot, and it's one of the best shots I ever took.
yeah.
Um, the other one is that with Twist, I did a lot of the photography, including the ill-fated Quality Street album, which is chaos, absolute chaos. I mean, bubblegum bands that they studied used to dress up in military gear, and they decided to call the album Quality Street and dress up as people on the tin. And we
Yeah.
got costume and hair and makeup and all this, and we did it, but we never really planned I thought they were going to cut them all out and put them on a tin, put them on a kind of round thing. But anyway, we never. The shots. There's amazing stuff in there that you've probably never seen. We'll try and share some, and but of course there was some great. It was just carnage. It was a chaotic sleeve, and I think the Independent said it was the worst album sleeve of the year. And a friend of mine, a designer, Ian Anderson from Designers Republic, rang me
Yeah,
and he said, "You never want to win the best design of the year. They're usually really boring. You always
yeah,
want to win the worst one because it means you provoke people."
yeah,
Anyway, that was the Independent newspaper, I think. But on the inside of the sleeve, the gatefold, this is doing gatefolds and stuff like this. There was a great photo we called The Scene, and it's them on motorbikes and Adrian Anja hanging around, and that was shot at the Sweets video, and it was actually shot in Clapham. It could easily be Manchester, but it's garage doors and the backs of houses, and that was one of our successes. It was a great shot, and it was one of the great shots we ever did.
yeah,
We did another one where Adge, Andy, um, Gordon, and Tony. We went into Poynton Woods, and they all wore their underpants, and then we sat them in the woods. And the Julie was there that day because she wouldn't get in the shot. That was it, I think. And then we got a mate of mine from Stockport College to airbrush, and he airbrushed their kind of genitals out, so they
yeah,
looked like kind of. We'd seen it on Aladdin Sane. Bowie did it. Bowie stood there and he didn't have any genitals. It just like an action man,
yeah,
like no cock, no dick. And then we did it with the band, and they all stood like they were naked in the woods. They were like these kind of um, hermaphrodite kind of sexless beings that sat in the woods. Um, at the time, we didn't use it because a band called Onion Head had just recreated Electric Ladyland, but in reverse.
yeah,
And Tony always felt, oh, it's like Onion Head. It's like the Electric Ladyland thing, which was brilliant. The Electric Lady, and this band called Onion Head did this great reverse gender Electric Ladyland thing. So anyway, we didn't use it, but it went on the 12-inch of Sons of the Stage, which is great, calling it Sons of the Stage, and it was on the 12-inch. It was on the disc, and it was used for an advert for it. And the Daily Mirror refused to run the advert. They said it was obscene.
is that?
Which again, yeah. So these were for a ex-punk from Stockport Tech. We were now starting to make progress.
Yeah,
We were winding people up with images and like being provocative, and it was. Well, Twists were great for that. They were always up for things. But the most important and probably the best shot I ever out of all of them though was The Scene. The guys on bikes. There's Nick and Julia. Julia's last day. They had a big bust up that night, and Julia left Twist that
yeah,
night. Nick, Tony, Gordon, Adge, and Ange, and it's a great shot. I will show
yeah,
you. And that Twist self-destructed. I spent a bit of time with Saint Etienne. I did a lot of work with them, amongst others. Quite a few creation acts actually. Bits and pieces came in, and Saint Etienne had a record label called Ice Rink, so I did stuff for them. And it was all 100 quid here and 100 quid there. And but you made a living. I worked with a band called If, which was Sean McCluskey and Paul Wells and Rob March. That was a great band. We did some good stuff with them. But then I get this is a Manchester related story. So then I get this call from this guy. He said, "We got your number from Creation Records because you work with Saint Etienne. There's these 5 City fans that want to get in a van and work hard and travel the world. They love the world of Twist Shop. They love the scene, and you're the guy that took it. I've been asked to find you." And this band was Oasis.
Wow.
And I went to see them in Sheffield University. It was called Bar 2. It's the small bar in the what they call the lower refectory. It's in the uni, and a lot of bands there. And they were supporting a really bad group called CNN, who were a bit like NXS. And Oasis just rambled on, hit you with 8 songs, and walked off. And you could see they were really good. And I've been given a cassette of them, which I think was probably the original recordings of Definitely Maybe. And I think I also knew Mark Coyle because Mark had come on World of Twist tours, but Mark Coyle was now doing live sound for Oasis. I think him and Noel were good mates, very close mates. So we met Noel and we met Liam and Bonehead and everyone, and it was a good laugh. And the next day, this was in Sheffield. The next day, we all met near the station in Manchester, and I took a series of shots around Cake Bread Street, and of them just messing about, really, just walking around. And the thing is, I didn't really do is pick up. I didn't deal with them as of 2 brothers. That would come later. They were a 5-piece band from Manchester. They all got on, and it was really good. So all my shots reflect a 5-piece band, and it's not about the kind of front line, if you like, that became Oasis. And we did some really nice shots. Then we went to Nomad Studios, the same place in Shudehill, and did some stuff in the evening. And the next day, Noel just said he's sticking around because there's this car in Withington. I think they knew some guy that had this old Jag. And we went out, and then we went outside a shop called Sharp Dressed Man. It was in Withington. I don't know if it's still there. It was very close to where Tony Ogden lived. Tony lived on Lucerne Road, just around the corner. And that night, before I'd stayed at Gordon's, and then I went and met him again, and the 5 of them were there. We did this great shot in a car, and them stood outside by this car, and then that was it. We went to the pub and had a drink, and that was it. And then I started going to see them. I saw them at Water Rats, which was their first London gig. That later that week we all met up again because they were supporting Saint Etienne in Glasgow. So we had this really good drunken night out in Glasgow at the Sub Club with all the band. And then I bumped into him and saw him at the 100 Club, saw him at the Marquee, saw him at their first gig at the Water Rats pub in King's Cross, which was their first London gig. And then after that, it just went bang. It was just like security guards and photo calls and things. There was no it was mad. And the next time I probably saw them was Finsbury Park, or a couple of albums in. It just went global. It was a wonderful thing to see happen from just a bunch of guys from Manchester. I don't know, they would always be in the bars, but they really hit me, Oasis. I love that line. I'm standing on the station in need of education in the rain. I just think that totally sums up how I was when I stood on Stockport station, but from going back from college, 1977 and 78. That's me, just this sort of lost soul, wondering if anything was ever going to actually happen. And unfortunately for me, it did, through photography. So for me, photography was a vehicle really to get to better things. It wasn't just about getting in on the guest list. And it kept me on my toes, but it gave me, it made me articulate. It gave me a voice, if you like. It became possible to express yourself, if you like. And since then, I've worked with the Prince's Trust. We used to help. I don't do it anymore. I don't really do it anymore. But we used to help young photographers, and a lot of them, they borrow a bit of money off the Prince's Trust. They go and buy a decent camera. They learn how to use it. But a lot of photography is about being organised, about always putting half a day every week to do your invoicing so that the money comes in, chase the money, ring people up and go, well, excuse me, why haven't they been paid? There's a structure to photography. It's not just running around taking photos. And I hope that I pass some of that information on to other people, because I got it from people like Paul Ryder and people I assisted. They taught me how to run my show, if you like, and how to be on time and all the rest of it. And we did a lot of good stuff with the Prince's Trust. And I've been lucky on occasion to do little talks for colleges. I'd love to go back to Stockport College and do something, because I just found it just solved a lot of problems for me. I might have just been all over the place, but because I could, I've never seen music as an industry for me, the music industry, if you like. I know that to have success, you've got to kind of have your eye on the ball and surround yourself with decent managers and probably lawyers and like accountants. And I never did that. I never ever took photography I never took music as seriously. I was in a band called Earl Brutus, which would be with Nick Sanderson and Gordon King. And we really wanted Tony Ogden to be part of it. But Tony really, unfortunately, suffered some serious mental health issues. And like a lot of people of that generation, there were a lot of drugs around as well. I'm talking about recreational drugs. And that didn't help. And for Tony, things were very tough for a long time.
Yeah.
But it was photography sort of bailed me out in a lot of ways. It kept me working. And then I became eventually, I went through the music thing, then it all went a bit dance music. And there's only so many photos you can take of somebody doing that with a headphone on a famous DJs.
Yeah.
And then I went through a weird phase, which was like business. I worked for corporate stuff, but corporate wanted to look like pop stars and DJs. So you were kind of, instead, it wasn't blokes and shaking hands in the boardroom anymore. They wanted like creative, even banks, people like the Royal Bank of Scotland. And you would go in and you would take photos of people and try and make them look like fucking rock stars. And of course you couldn't, because we know that a rock star is something that runs through people's DNA. Yeah. It's a kind of hidden, it's the third eye, your Liam Gallagher's and your Tony Ogden's, they have the presence of rock, of the presence of a proper star. And but anyway, so I did a lot of corporate stuff, and then after that, I got a job as a picture editor for Channel 4, on their pictures team. There were about 6 of us working together, and they let me work on documentaries and serious stuff, which was great. So I didn't have to do things like the Bake Off, but I did work on Big Brother, and that was a complete and utter revelation. Working on this show, Big Brother, when it was huge, it was insane.
Which one did you work on? I used to watch the early ones.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The one I worked on was the one when the Polish girl, the Portuguese girl won, and I was on the one where Anthony, the Geordie bloke, the sort of Saturday Night Fever bloke, he won. Yeah. And then I worked on the celeb ones as well. But it was like Big Brother was a weird one, because it was all top secret, and when you were like one of the 6 people that knew who was going in the house, and then the News of the World would print them, and the boss head of Channel 4 would ring you up and said, "Have you shopped with us?" And I'm just going like, "No, I haven't. No, I haven't." But that was quite an exciting show. Somebody described going there on eviction nights this is when it was huge. It was like 9 million people watching, and you'd go up there to Elstree and organise photography with all these proper snappers, and it was like a public hanging. It was like people baying for blood. It was like weird thing. It was a mythic. This was the beginning of reality TV, I think.
Yeah.
And it was another thing to do. Channel 4 was very good to me, but it was also very, very straight. It was also very, very cautious and very quite a bore. Towards the end, it got very, very officey and spreadsheets, and it's lost. I think Channel 4 lost its punk edge. When I first joined, they used to just put programs out for the sake of it. Late night, weird shit, and later on it kind of changed. But anyway, it meant I could work with a lot of great photographers, and I met some people I really admired, like Nick Broomfield. I worked with him on the filmmaker. I met Mike Lee, who and Abigail's Party was like one of the greatest things ever on television for me, Nuts in May. And I got to work with some quite important, quite the kind of people I respect. The people I grew up with and really deeply respect as filmmakers. So it's been a charmed life, really, Paul.
Yeah,
I can't really complain. Last
yeah,
week I was doing pictures of Peter Buck from REM with Luke Haynes. I just shot some stuff in Newcastle the other day. I've been editing today, so it doesn't stop.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think people can take good photos now on their phone,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they
It's
need to know
amazing
how
what you
to
can do.
delete. They need to know how to delete.
Yeah,
There's too much photography now. Can I
yeah,
just say this?
yeah, of
When
course.
you used to shoot on film,
Yeah,
I've been, obviously for a number of reasons, I've been going through the 8 rolls of film I have of Oasis in 1993.
yeah,
Obviously, there's a lot of attention for everything Oasis at the moment.
yeah,
Um, and I've noticed this about a lot. You used to have 35 mil rolls of film. And when you're photographing people, they're dicking around and you're going, yeah, come on, come on, come on. And then at the end, you go, look, there's 3 frames left. We've got to get it. Can you just focus on this for a minute? And suddenly you can always get the best shots on the last 3 frames
yeah,
because everybody's focused. Nowadays, digital, there's no end to the amount of images you can take.
yeah,
So you take a very different kind of photograph as a result of that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so shooting on film was very, very important. And I think the modern digital photographer, me included, needs to know how to delete and bin loads and loads of it, and
Yeah.
only focus on the good ones.
So I feel like we've come to like 40 minutes now, and I
God,
always
yeah,
like to end the video where I'll probably put you on the spot now, but give me a track that means something to you.
a track.
Yeah. I've got a playlist of guests.
Oh, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen.
Oh wow.
It's one. It's just one. It's just. My brother had all the Bruce Springsteen, the early ones albums,
Yeah.
and I never really thought that much of it. But I go and see Springsteen whenever he plays now, and he's like an uncle to me. He's like a long lost uncle.
Yeah.
What I love about Springsteen is, and he does it now. He talks to his audience who are very much this generation and older. I'm 64 years old, and when you're our age, you've lost people like Tony Ogden, Nick Sanderson, Dave Hardy, Martin Wright, Ian Bendelow, Anthony from Interstella. All these people. We've just lost a guy called Stuart Borman this week, really old friend of mine. And Springsteen talks to you about loss, and he talks to you about a life worn, a life lived, and a life worn, and a bruised life. And I really, that Born to Run is what it's all about. Tramps like us, maybe we were born to run.
Yeah.
It's just one of the most uplifting records of our time.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And last point on basis of Manchester,
Yeah.
we we were talking about people have often wondered what the thing is about Oasis, why they were so successful. Why is everybody now obsessed? And it's that same reason that Springsteen does it. It's that those people that were 20-year-olds are 50 now, and they're going and they've lived a life, and a lot's happened to them,
Yeah.
and a lot of shit has been thrown at people,
Yeah.
good and bad. And particularly white guys in trainers, well, guys in trainers, but Oasis audience, Reebok's white van man, calling people white van man and all that sort of stuff. And Oasis gave those people a voice in a
Yeah.
very good way. They're not, you never think of Oasis as political, but they gave people feelings they never thought they had.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's what Bruce Springsteen does. And I'm not a part of the Oasis story at all. I spent a couple of days with them, and we got some quite good photos. They've got better or bigger, more famous photos than mine. But I'm so glad to be part of that story because that like I said, they're standing in a station in need of education. They gave a voice to people, Oasis, and I think that's no wonder people love them so much.
Yeah.
And they were like a forgotten generation, those people.
Yeah.
And Oasis put those people back on the map. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
So,
Manchester forever.
yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Jim. I'm just going to stop recording now.
Yeah.